Hey guys, I'm Uriza. This story is all about what if Naruto was raised by the Joker. Such an idea is so wrong, and yet so right. Not to be taken too seriously. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 6, Big Sword. Kurenai was trying her hardest to keep an eye on her surroundings, as they didn't know when the enemy Jonin or the other ninja would attack. She really was, but the way Naruto kept grabbing everyone's attention made detecting the presence of an enemy next to impossible. For example, he had just barely begun to sing a song. I wear my blue pajamas in the summer when it's hot. I wear my flannel nightie in the winter when it's not. But sometimes in the springtime. And sometimes in the fall. I slip between the covers with nothing on at all. He waggled his eyebrows at Hinata as he sang the sixth line, causing her to faint from embarrassment. Shino was there to catch her while Naruto continued on with the chorus. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, what's it to ya? Shino finally managed to revive Hinata. Glory, glory, hallelujah. With nothing on at all. Naruto pumped his fist into the air during the last line. Hinata fainted again. Tajuna was amused. Kurenai was annoyed that her concentration had been broken yet again. And it was all Shino could do to avoid laughing out loud, or even chuckling. Zabuza, who had been hiding in a tree with his sword in the ready position to be thrown, had to pull his face out of the dirt due to the face fault he just experienced. Also, he had dislocated his right shoulder when he hit the ground, as it was the only way to prevent accidental suicide with his sword. He had a sneaking suspicion that the blonde already knew of his presence and had done that just to cause injury before the actual fight, but he wasn't sure. By the time Zabuza had stood up, cleaned off his face, and relocated his shoulder, Shino had revived Hinata again. Zabuza threw his sword with his left arm and used Shunshin to appear in a tree that the sword would arrive at if it missed. Naruto, Shino, and Hinata dodged easily. Kurenai pushed Tajuna into the dirt as she dove for cover. Naruto said the first thing that came to mind as the sword passed over his head. I've heard of compensation, but Zabuza face faulted again. With his face in the dirt, he was unable to catch the large weapon, and so it embedded itself into a tree about 8 meters away. Irritated, the Nukenin from Kiri quickly stood up and composed himself, only to turn and find that Kurenai had finished making hand seals for a jutsu. Magan, Kunnegakur. She disappeared. Zabuza stood there for a second, before he kicked to his right, hitting Kurenai in the solar plexus and dispelling her genjutsu while she was sent flying. Zabuza made a few seals while he dodged Hinata's shuriken. Kirigaku no jutsu. Hidden mist no jutsu. The area was soon covered in dense fog. Foolish of the Jonin to think that she could get to me without my notice. She didn't know that I can detect heartbeats and breaths from up to 50 meters away. Your name is Mamakai Zabuza, isn't it? Asked Naruto. How would you know that, shorty? Naruto growled. My mother used to read me the bingo book to put me to sleep when I was younger. I recognize you by the lack of eyebrows. Regardless, there are 8 targets. Throat, spinal column, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidney, heart, so many choices. What vital, vulnerable place shall I choose? Heh. Blah blah blah. Shino. What? Found him yet? No. Hinata. There is chakra in the mist itself. It is difficult to see through. Seems like we need something with a sense of smell. Kuchi Yase. Suddenly, 2 separate laughing voices were heard. A pair of jackals stood next to Naruto, one on either side of him. One was wearing armor and the other was large and bulky. I welcome you with open arms, began Naruto. Shinji and Yuki. Well met, young clown. Said Shinji, the armored jackal. His armor was a gleaming black. We shall kill and laugh with you. Said Yuki, the larger female jackal. A short distance away, Kurenai had her hands full with 2 Mizubunshin of Zabuza. He had obviously recovered his sword, as each of the water clones had a sword of their own. It was taking all the knowledge Kurenai had just to keep up with the 2 clones. She knew that Zabuza was trying to keep her from aiding her students, and she hoped to the kami that they would be okay. She also knew that Zabuza was stronger than her, if only she could use her genjutsu. But all the ones she knew targeted the eyes first. "I got the browless freak," said Naruto. "Protect the old fart, okay Shino?" "Okay Hinata." "Wakata," replied Shino. "Oh okay," stuttered Hinata. "Not going to happen," said Zabuza as he appeared in between Tajuna, Shino, and Hinata. Hinata stumbled away from Zabuza and Shino jumped away from the swordsman. Tajuna fell backwards. Just before Zabuza could do anything, Shinji bit his head off, revealing it to simply be a water clone. Suddenly, Zabuza was there with his sword sticking into Shinji's back through a small slit in between his armor plates. Another Shinji was suddenly there and it bit into Zabuza, dispelling yet another water clone. The first Shinji fell apart to reveal empty armor. "Yoroi Bunshin no Jutsu," stated the real Shinji smugly. "Armor clone no Jutsu." Yuki then howled. The air in the area got colder and snow began to fall, slowly at first but with increasing speed. Soon, the ground was covered in snow. Oddly enough, the fog still permeated the area. "Yuki, Tsuga no Jutsu," called out the female jackal. "Snow, tracking Fang no Jutsu." Yuki sank into the snow as if she were a rock dropped in a pond. As she began searching for Zabuza, Shinji and Naruto were busy blocking projectiles that were coming at Tajuna and or Hinata. Shino had gone off to find Kurenai. Suddenly, Yuki found Zabuza standing on top of a nearby pond which had somehow not frozen yet. She leapt out of the snow as if she were leaping out from behind a bush and nearly tackled the swordsman. However, Zabuza anticipated the attack and moved out of the way at the last second. "Suro no Jutsu," said Zabuza calmly, trapping the female jackal in a sphere of water. "Water prison no Jutsu." Yuki laughed. Zabuza's eyes widened as he realized the implications of her giving away her position. Before he could do anything else, he was tackled by no less than 40 of Naruto's shadow clones. Since his concentration was broken, he lost control of his Suro and his water clones. The Nukenin from Kiri quickly dispelled the clones on top of him with a quick swing of his sword just in time to get clocked by the real Naruto, who landed back on the shoreline afterwards. As Zabuza attempted to regain his balance, Yuki came at him again, charging across the top of the water. Just before she was able to attack, Zabuza managed to slash her jugular. Fearing for her life, she returned to the world of the summons, taking her snow with her. "Congratulations," said Shinji. "You managed to scare my older sister away." "Shinji," began Naruto. "He's my kill." He turned to Zabuza. "I'm going to take your sword from your dead hands, okay?" The young Uzumaki was grinning like a maniac. Zabuza simply began making hand seals to perform a jutsu. To his surprise, Naruto mimicked his movements exactly except the boy was still grinning. "I'm going to wipe that smug grin off of your face." "Sutin, Suiari Udan no Jutsu." "Water release, Water Dragon Blast no Jutsu." Acting on instinct and what little knowledge Naruto had of chakra, he suddenly released his own version by adding the monkey seal at the end of the seals. "Sutin, Caustic, Ryodon no Jutsu." "Water release, Caustic Dragon Blast no Jutsu." A dragon made of water rose from the pond to attack Naruto only to be intercepted by a near-identical dragon made of a sickly green liquid. The two attacks cancelled each other out. Shino and Kurenai had returned to the group just in time to witness Naruto copy Zabuza's attack. "How do you like them apples? Why you little monkey?" As Zabuza charged Naruto, the blonde quickly went through 3 seals, snake, boar, and monkey. Realizing what was going on, Shinji threw Tajuna and Hinata onto his back while Shino and Kurenai dove for cover. The jackal followed them. Naruto put his palm in the air and spun around once. "Caustic Barrier, no Jutsu." The green liquid surrounded the young clown creating a barrier. Zabuza's sword came down in a vertical slash only to be stopped by the barrier. The metal of the sword was beginning to wear away as it remained in contact with the barrier. Realizing that he was just wasting a good sword, Zabuza backed off. "Caustic Barrier Conversion, Caustic Bomb, no Jutsu." Zabuza didn't have time to react and was hit by the blast of acid. Not only were his clothes ruined and his skin badly burned, but he was thrown backwards into a tree. Naruto landed on the branch above him and drew a kunai as Kurenai, Tajuna, Shino, Hinata, and Shinji exited from the brush. "I'm going to stab your face off now," he said cheerfully. Suddenly, 2 senbon needles flew from off to the side into Zabuza's neck, apparently killing him. As the man's body fell to the ground, a Kiranin caught it before it hit. The Kiranin was wearing a Kiri-Umbu mask. "Thank you for stopping him long enough for me to catch him," said the masked person. "We of Kiri have been hunting this one for a long time." "You're a jerk, you know that," replied Naruto angrily. "He was my kill. Sorry about that, but it was my mission to kill him. I'm going to go dispose of the body now." With that, the young Umbu left the area. "You stupid jerk. You could have at least left his sword behind," shouted Naruto as he raised his fists into the air. Suddenly, Naruto didn't feel so good. He realized that he was pretty much out of chakra. He blacked out and fell towards the ground. "Naruto!" called out both Kurenai and Hinata, but before the boy hit the ground Shinji caught him. "Well, that was fun," chuckled the jackal as he set Naruto down on the ground. "Do tell him to call again, okay?" With that, Shinji returned to the world of summons. "Naruto's probably okay," mused Shino. "More than likely he simply used up all of his chakra." He looked at Kurenai. "How long has that kunai been in your leg?" "One of them is Yubunshin must have had a real kunai," replied Kurenai. She then passed out from the blood loss and sudden lack of adrenaline. Shino was there to catch her. He pulled the offending stab-bitty object out of her leg and administered first aid. "Tajuna? Help me carry Kurenai-sensei." "Hinata? Go carry Naruto." "Oh okay," she replied nervously. They arrived at Tajuna's home about 30 minutes later and laid both Kurenai and Naruto out on mats. Just as Hinata was about to place a blanket over Naruto's body, his eyes shot open. "I didn't think heaven would be this beautiful," he said, acting as though he was still half asleep. Hinata fainted and fell forwards. Naruto caught her and gently laid her down where he was on the mat before. He placed the blanket on her and stood up. He turned to see Shino shaking his head at him, obviously, to Naruto anyway, amused. "So, where are we?" "Tajuna's house." "How long was I out?" "About 30 to 35 minutes. "Wow. I was tired. Anyone else live here?" "Just Tajuna's daughter, Tsunami, and her son, Inari." "What happened to Kurenai-sensei?" "Apparently, one of the water clones had stabbed her with a real kunai. We didn't notice until you had passed out." Naruto laughed at that. "Anyway," began the blonde, "what did you think of that hunter nin? I seriously doubt that our masked friend had killed Zabuza, else the body would have been disposed of on the spot." "I agree with Shino," said Kurenai weakly as she began to sit up. "More than likely, the hunter nin was Zabuza's accomplice, a failsafe against him getting defeated. We will have to face the both of them when the time comes." She looked over at Hinata. "I see you've been flirting with her again, Naruto." "I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about," replied Naruto sarcastically. Tajuna and Tsunami entered the room, smiles on their faces. "We'd like to thank you for defending me against Zabuza," said the old man. "He's not dead," replied Naruto. "He was only mostly dead." Kurenai explained her theory to Tajuna. "Are you sure you're not just being paranoid?" asked the old man. "I'm sure," replied Kurenai. "Hinata's awake," stated Shino. "Oh, good," replied Tsunami. "Dinner will be ready in about half an hour. Wanna know what I just realized?" Naruto asked to no one in particular. "I have another chance to take that sword." "You really want that thing, don't you?" asked Tajuna. "Sure do. It's the perfect thing to give you a very close shave with." Everyone else sweat dropped. "Perhaps we'll get to kill this Gato person as well," mused Shino. "You'll die," said a young boy's voice. It was Inari, and he was standing at the door to the room. "How do you know?" asked Naruto, curious as to whether the boy was a prophet or not. "All who stand against Gato die." There is no point in even making the effort to resist like Grandpa is doing. You'll all die. You make a very compelling argument, allow me a rebuttal, said Naruto. Boot to the head. Inari was sent across the room and hit the wall. He slumped down like a rag doll. Inari! Exclaimed both Tajuna and Tsunami. Oh, don't worry, said the blonde ninja in an annoyed tone. He'll live. I made sure. There was a short pause, and then Naruto snapped his fingers. That's what I forgot. Both the old man and his daughter assumed that Naruto really did kill the boy. Hinata's mind had gone blank. Kurenai was exasperated. Shino suspected a joke was on the way. I didn't bring any of my instant ramen packets with me. Face faults across the board. Naruto, began Kurenai. What made you remember that just now? I smell dinner. After dinner, Kurenai outlined a plan for them all to train, as it would take some time for Zabuza to recover enough to come after Tajuna again. She outlined that all three of the genin needed some chakra control training, so they would be learning how to climb trees without the use of their arms. The next morning they set out for training. Hinata did surprisingly well, and she was able to reach the top of her tree by noon. Kurenai sent her off to guard Tajuna while he worked on the bridge. Naruto and Shino weren't doing so well, and the blonde was doing a lot worse than his bespectacled friend. By dinner, the bug user had managed to reach the top, whereas Naruto was only 8 feet off of the ground. Hinata and Tajuna returned home from the bridge, and Kurenai, Shino, and Naruto returned from training. Naruto and Inari had another argument that ended with the smaller boy getting a black eye. Tajuna tried to pacify Naruto by telling him the story of Inari's stepfather, Kaiza. So all he does about it is cry? Asked Naruto. I guess so. Naruto gave the old man a look that screamed, your grandson is an idiot. Before anyone could stop him, Naruto ran up the stairs to Inari's room and broke down the door. You idiot. You think crying is going to bring him back? Boy, do I have news for you. Kaiza would never want to see a frown on your face, so crack a smile. That won't bring him back, but it will piss Gato off. And I can swear to you that Gato will die soon. Naruto marched down the stairs with a smile on his face. I feel better now. Inari was still in his room, a shocked expression on his face. Well, he looked as shocked as anyone could with the filling for a coconut cream pie covering his face. Yes, it was a regular pie. Sometime during all the shouting, he had dropped the picture of Kaiza he had been holding. It lay there on the ground, the glass cracked. The boy wasn't able to bring himself to cry. The next morning, Naruto set out to get the training done as soon as he could. His chakra control was still not very good, and he spent much of the day trying to run up a tree. Kurenai returned several times to check on his progress and make sure he ate. She'd leave a meal for him and return to find it had been eaten, but she never saw him cease in his training. He continued on into the night, constantly trying to use his chakra to latch onto the tree and make it to the top. Every so often, the blonde's rants about how gravity was an idiotic jerk could be heard. Eventually, morning found Naruto exhausted on the ground near the tree he had been using for training. However, the blonde was not alone. A feminine boy of the age of 14 was searching for certain medicinal herbs when he found the young ninja asleep on the ground. The feminine boy reached for the blonde as if to strangle him, but he hesitated as if he was deciding what to do. Finally, he decided to shake the blonde awake. As soon as he touched Naruto, the blonde clown was instantly awake. He immediately sat up and had a kunai to the feminine boy's neck. Blink. Don't ever touch a sleeping ninja, said the blonde. I'll have to remember that, replied the older boy. Naruto put his kunai back in his weapons pouch. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Who are you? My name is Haku. What are you doing out here? I am collecting medicinal herbs. And I'm sorry if you're too poor to be able to sleep inside a building, but... Who said I was poor? I was training all night last night. I fell asleep only a few hours ago. Training. To become stronger, naturally. For what reason? So that I can spread smiles and laughter across the world. I'm afraid that doesn't make any sense. To you it doesn't. Don't you have any precious people you'd like to protect? Maybe. That is a much better reason to become stronger, and you'll become stronger faster that way as well. I'll take your anonymous suggestion into consideration. How is that an anonymous suggestion? I gave it to you in person and you know my name. Why don't you have a sense of humor? What? Never mind. Well, I ought to be going, ma'am. Me too. And I'm actually a boy. Already knew that, ma'am. You simply look like a girl, blah blah blah. Unless you cut your hair, I'm going to call you ma'am. Whatever. I'll see you later. Maybe. Just maybe. The day progressed much like the day before. Naruto trained, Kurenai fed him, Hinata and Shino guarded Tajuna at the bridge, and Zabuza recovered some more. That night saw Zabuza fully recovered and ready to attack the next day. It also saw Naruto reach the top of the stupid tree. He returned to Tajuna's house, exhausted. He slept like a rock all through the night. Morning found Kurenai, Shino, Hinata, and Tajuna heading for the bridge. They decided to let Naruto sleep in, against Shino's suggestion that they wake him. Additionally, Haku and Zabuza were also heading for the bridge. Omake. In the Uzumaki estate's basement. A man with white eyes was hanging upside down by his feet. A boy no older than 13 was standing on a catwalk next to the man. No, you can't do this. My image will be broken forever. The man with white eyes exclaimed. The boy laughed evilly. You should have thought of that before you mentally and verbally abused Hinata, he retorted as he pulled a lever. The man was lowered into what appeared to be a huge cauldron full of Type 2 Smilex. No. He screamed. No one will hear your screams. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, the boy pulled the lever in the other direction. The white-eyed man was coughing and wheezing. When he was finished returning to a normal breathing pattern, he was quite puzzled. Why am I not laughing uncontrollably? What? You thought that was Smilex? Nah. It was pink hair dye. No. Chapter 7, Clarice. Naruto awakened to the sound of Tsunami screaming to please don't kill her son or else she'll bite her own tongue off. At first, Naruto was pissed as he looked at a nearby clock to see what time it was. He instantly knew he had been left behind, but at least there was amusement somewhere nearby. Perhaps Kurenai-sensei had anticipated this? Manipulative woman. Naruto got up and silently dressed himself and readied his weapons pouch. He could hear Inari crying as he apparently regained consciousness. Suddenly, the boy stopped crying. Naruto could hear the sound of a kitchen drawer opening. He heard a knife being removed from the drawer. The front door opened again. Naruto looked out the window to see the boy running with a steak knife in hand. That kid has guts. You said it. I wonder if it was something I said? Evidently, it was. Well, let's go have some fun. You're going to kill the Broad's kidnappers? Clearly, the Kyuubi was confused. Yeah. Wanna make something of it? No thanks. I'm good. You're learning, I'm so proud. Your sarcasm is blistering. You're welcome. With that, Naruto pursued the kidnappers while making sure that Inari didn't notice him. Weruji and Zuri were bored out of their minds. Sure, they got to kill a pig on the way to kidnapping Tsunami, but then they didn't get to kill the brat. No matter. Suddenly, a rock hit Weruji in the back. Inari then demanded that his mother be set free. The swordsman turned to see that the brat had followed them and was holding a pitifully dull steak knife as a weapon. Tsunami again threatened to end her own life if they harmed her son, but Weruji quickly knocked her out before she could make good on her threat. Meanwhile, Zuri began walking towards the boy, hand on his sword. Inari charged him, but before either person got within striking distance of the other, a sound like thunder echoed in the immediate area. Zuri's head exploded to his right in a mess of meat, bone, brains, and blood as a heavy lead object traveled through it at incredibly high velocities. His body fell to its knees, and then fell face down, making a pool of blood and gore under him. Inari was scared as hell. Then a familiar psychotic laugh echoed out and Naruto suddenly appeared on top of Zuri's corpse, a large, straight metal object with a wooden handle in his hand. On the top of the object, an orange smiley face had been painted. Say hello, Clarice, said Naruto creepily as he pulled the trigger. Waraji's head exploded backwards. His corpse similarly fell backwards when his knees went limp. Naruto? What? Thank you. Naruto was confused. He didn't know why Neri was thanking him. He guessed correctly that it had something to do with saving the boy's life as well as rescuing his mother. Well, you got guts, kid. How about you go and get a lynch mob together? I'm going to the bridge now. Bye-bye. With that, Naruto disappeared. Inari was a little confused, he didn't know what a lynch mob was. He then determined that he should get the villagers together so that they all could fight as well. Naruto reloaded Clarice as he made his way to the bridge. He had used 2 slugs against the samurai, and he loaded his shotgun with a shot cartridge in another slug. He was still a little pissed that his teammates had left him behind. As he approached the bridge, he made note of the thick mist that had gathered. He also saw a dome made of ice. Naruto prepared a kunai. Hinata was worried. She was stuck inside the dome of Makyu Hyushao, demonic ice mirrors, that Haku had put up. She was having difficulty predicting Haku's next move as he moved faster than her Byakugan could track. She had a number of Senbon needles sticking through her body. She knew that Shino and Kurenye-sensei were facing off against Zabuza and having difficulty. She didn't know what to do. Experimentally, she threw a kunai at one of the gaps in the mirrors. Haku reached out of a mirror and caught it only to have his mask hit by another kunai thrown from outside the dome. Haku fell out of the mirror and was temporarily stunned. Curious as to what had happened, both Zabuza and Kurenai turned their attention towards the ice dome just in time to see Naruto land while making hand seals. Kuchi Yase no Jutsu. 2 laughing voices were heard. One was loud and guttural whereas the other was deep and creepy. As the smoke cleared, a giant 2-headed hyena was seen. The bird of Hermes is our name, began the hyena's right head. Its voice was the loud and guttural one. Its empty eye sockets glowed red and orange and spouted smoke. Eating our wings to make us tame, finished the other head. Its voice was deep and creepy, as if it were the voice of the dead. Its empty eye sockets dripped with blood and glowed a sickly purple. They were delicious, said Naruto from the back of the bird of Hermes. Both heads laughed at Naruto's joke. I doubt we have met before, began the left head. My name is Pluto. And mine is Vulcan. So, who are we to kill? See the guy with the big sword. Both heads nodded. I want you to kill him, but I want the sword intact. Have fun. Naruto leapt off of their back and landed on the topmost ice mirror. Vulcan spat a fireball at Zabuza. The swordsman dodged. Pluto's mouth opened and many tentacles that were darker than the blackest night reached out to grasp the Nukenin. Zabuza chopped through the tentacles with his sword but soon found that they almost instantly regenerated. He was able to get away from the tentacles only to have to dodge another fireball. Pluto clamped his mouth shut, cutting the tentacles off, but the tentacles linked together to make a squid-like creature that continued to go after Zabuza. Pluto then turned his head towards Shino, Kurenai, and Tajuna. I want you 3 to get behind us, this is going to get ugly. Pluto then turned back to the battle. Zabuza was busy dodging the dark squid and Vulcan's fireballs. Pluto inhaled deeply and spat out a pile of bones. The bones arranged themselves into 3 humanoid monstrosities. Each had a spear made entirely of bone. As they attacked, Vulcan inhaled deeply and spat a mass of flame on the ground in front of him. The flame took solid shape and became 3 metal humanoid monsters. They too attacked Zabuza. Pluto began spitting bone projectiles at Zabuza whereas Vulcan went back to using his fireballs. Naruto was trying to figure out a way into the dome without exposing himself to Haku's attacks when the mirror he was standing on suddenly spun, throwing him inside. He landed at Hinata's feet. What's a nice girl like you doing in a trap like this? Said Naruto as he pulled his face off of the floor. Hinata blushed despite the pain from the Senbon needles. Now I have 2 opponents, began Haku. Which should I kill first? Hi ma'am. Replied Naruto. Haven't seen you since the forest. You knew that it was me? Well, duh. Naruto-kun. What is it Hinata? This boy moves faster than my eyes can track. Really? I guess I should speed up too. Naruto pulled his pant legs up, revealing that his shins and calves were covered in training weights. He quickly unbuckled them and threw them at two of the mirrors. When they collided with the mirrors, said sheets of ice cracked. Then the weights fell to the ground and cracked the tiles that covered the top of the bridge. Naruto then revealed that his forearms were similarly covered in weights when he slid the sleeves of his jacket up his arms. He quickly removed those weights and threw them at another pair of mirrors, eliciting a similar reaction from both the mirrors and the tiles. Haku then made an attempt to attack while causing the four damaged mirrors to reform. Naruto dodged and tried to punch the long-haired boy in the gut, narrowly missing. Wow! You're still faster than me. Haku ignored him. Haku decided to try and make for another attack. Naruto narrowly missed with his counter-attack. When Haku made another pass, Naruto threw a halibut at the boy, narrowly missing yet again. Hinata, however, managed to nick Haku's right arm with her jukin, paralyzing it. When Haku made another pass, Hinata tried to hit him again. She missed, but Naruto managed to give the boy a boot to the head. When the long-haired boy hit the ground, he decided to finish off the girl so that he could concentrate on Naruto. He threw a number of needles at Hinata. Naruto's eyes went wide as he wasn't able to stop the needles. He looked at the girl. "And na Naruto-kun. I'll love," she said just before she passed out and collapsed. Naruto turned to Haku, severe hatred and rage in his eyes. "You stupid fox," began Naruto quietly. "Gimme your power. Give it to me now." Fearing Naruto's ire, Kyuubi complied. Naruto's eyes became slits and red. His nails lengthened into claws. His hair became much wilder. His canines lengthened into fangs. The whisker marks on his cheeks became darker. His mouth became a snarling, toothy grin that unsettled Haku to the core of his being. Red chakra exploded from Naruto's body as he gave a primal scream, shattering all of the ice mirrors. Naruto leapt at Haku and began to beat the boy into a bloody pulp. "This is the way we beat your face. Beat your face. Beat your face. This is the way we beat your face. For revenge this fine morning." Shino, Tajuna, and Kurenai witnessed Naruto's rage as he beat the hell out of Haku. When Haku could barely move, Naruto pulled out Clarice and pumped Haku's heart full of shot. Noticing Hinata, Kurenai ran to the girl's motionless body. Just before she was able to touch the girl, Naruto was there. "Don't touch her." Naruto was still pissed and sad. Kurenai complied with his command. Slowly, the red chakra dissipated and Naruto's body returned to normal. The blonde leaned over and kissed Hinata's pale lips. As he began to stand up, Kurenai could see tears streaming down Naruto's face. "Get those needles out of her, and be careful," commanded Naruto. "Shino, let's go kill a swordsman." As the boys went towards the fight between the Bird of Hermes and Zabuza, Kurenai pulled a needle out of Hinata's neck. Suddenly, the Hyuga girl gasped for air. She was still alive. Zabuza had finally managed to find a way to kill the dark squid thing, and had destroyed 2 of the metal monsters and all 3 of the bone creatures. The third metal creature was incapacitated, and Zabuza was attempting to keep the Bird of Hermes from creating any more monsters. Suddenly, a swarm of bugs started buzzing around the swordsman's head, biting and stinging him. He couldn't ignore them, and he realized that someone was standing behind him. Before he could react, a pair of kunai had been jabbed into each arm, forcing him to drop his sword. As it fell, Zabuza kicked it towards the Bird of Hermes. Neither Pluto nor Vulcan were able to catch the blade, and Vulcan's neck was sliced. Fearing for their life, they returned to the world of summons, taking the remains of the dark squid, the skeletons, and the metal monsters with them. "You're finished," stated Naruto emotionlessly. Suddenly, they all heard laughing coming from the unfinished end of the bridge. Everyone turned to see a gang of thugs with Gato in their midst. "Zabuza," began the crime lord. "I knew you wouldn't be able to complete your mission, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. Since everyone here is tired or dead, it wouldn't be all that hard for my men to kill you all. Additionally, I won't have to pay you if you happen to be killed in the melee. So, baby demon, what does it feel like to feel fear?" "Hey kid," said Zabuza. Lend me a kunai. Sure, said Naruto before stabbing the swordsman in the heart with it. Why? Asked the Nukenin. Because your ally killed my girl. Now shut up and die already. Naruto twisted the kunai as he drove it deeper. Gato laughed. Naruto then turned his anger towards the crime lord. Say hello to my little friend, yelled the blonde in an entirely too happy manner. He pulled out Clarice and shot the slug towards Gato. The little man's head exploded, and the man behind him was hit in the heart. Both died instantly. Now you've gone and done it, yelled one of the thugs. You just killed our source of a paycheck, so we'll take our revenge out on you. Suddenly, said thug fell over, a crossbow bolt sticking out from between his eyes. Everyone turned to look at the other end of the bridge to see all of the villagers standing there with various weapons and tools. Inari was the one holding the crossbow. Good shot, complimented Naruto. Thanks, replied the young boy. The blonde turned to the thugs and touched the palm of his left hand. A pie appeared. Cage Bunshin. 20 Narutos appeared, each holding a pie. They launched the projectiles at the thugs, each pie hitting one in the face. Screams of agony were heard as the men who had been hit by a pie had their faces dissolved by a powerful acid. The remaining thugs began jumping off of the bridge and onto a boat. The boat sped away, but didn't get far before Naruto pulled a bundle of strange orange sticks out of his jacket. He pulled a tag off of the strings that were attached to the sticks, and hurled it at the boat. The sticks exploded just as they hit the deck, destroying the boat and killing everyone on board. Naruto went over to where Kurenai was crouched near Hinata. All of the senbon needles had been removed. Naruto's eyes went wide as he saw that Hinata's eyes were open and she was breathing. Hinata. Yeah, yes, na Naruto-kun. Naruto pinched his cheek. Ow. I'm not dreaming. I'm not dreaming. You're alive. Naruto had a grin on his face, but it wasn't a creepy or scary grin, it was a smile of genuine joy. He began to jump around, obviously happy and excited. As he expressed his happiness, he collected his weaponry and his training weights. He restored said items to their proper places and went over to where Zabuza's sword lay. He heft the weapon over his shoulder and then walked to where Hinata was, grin still on his face. He placed the sword's hilt inside his jacket, and it disappeared in a puff of smoke. He then picked the girl up and began to carry her back to Tajuna's house. After Hinata had recovered, and after the bodies, or parts thereof, of the dead, those that could be located, had been buried, Zabuza's and Haku's were side by side, the bridge had been repaired and finished. Tajuna declared that the bridge would be named the Naruto Bridge. Naruto laughed his head off when he heard that. Kurenai and her students said goodbye to the Wave Country, and headed for home. Naruto and Hinata were walking together, hand in hand. Omaka. As Zabuza was trying to keep the Bird of Hermes from creating any more monsters, Naruto snuck up on him. The blonde put both of his hands into his jacket. Minnow Cloud. He threw a large number of minnows into the air. The small fish pelted Zabuza, distracting him. When he turned to deal with the blonde, he stepped on some of the puny fish and slipped. Henge. Naruto suddenly looked like a Britishman. He then went and reached into his business suit and pulled a mackerel out of it. Behold, I am John Cleese, declared the boy as he began to beat Zabuza with the fish. Chapter 8, International Incident. Hayashi was freaking out. His daughter, whom he once believed was useless, had been sent on a C-rank mission. Come to find out, it actually was an A-rank mission. Despite this, she not only survived, but she and her team were successful on their mission, even in spite the hindrance that the demon brat obviously posed. To top it off, she seemed immensely more confident in everything she did. Was she laying low before now, or did this single success cause Hinata to become prideful? Or was it something else? It was all so confusing. Well, he wasn't sure how she trained, though she seemed to spend a lot of time with her teammates and John, an instructor. Perhaps she had been training the whole time. Hayashi wasn't sure. He had sent members of his clan to spy on them, but his spies didn't stay conscious for long. Perhaps it was that Aburame boy that kept detecting them. Whatever. It was pointless to try and spy. Little did the head of the Hyuga clan know, Shino, Naruto, and Hinata were training together and trading jutsu. Come to find out, Naruto's bloodline seemed to be transferable via simply being around him for an extended period of time. Joker had a theory: the chemicals that the Uzumakis released in slow amounts seeped into the people around them. Over a period of time, the bodies of said people began to gain some immunity to it. Eventually, their bodies adapted to produce the chakra and chemicals needed for the bloodline. What it really was, though, was the minuscule amounts of both types of Smilex that the Uzumakis released that caused the bodies of others to adapt. Hinata had begun to have a slight poisonous tint to her chakra. Same with Shino, but with the bug user, his body, and the bodies of his bugs, seemed to have adapted further, possibly because he had been around members of the Uzumaki clan a great deal more than Hinata had. Naruto was teaching Shino how to use this to his advantage. Shino developed the Hodorobuku no Jutsu, Firefly Bomb no Jutsu, in which he could have his bugs explode using the poisonous chakra as a catalyst. A single bug exploding wouldn't do much damage, but a group of 40 bugs could sever limbs with a combined explosion. Considering that the numbers of Shino's personal colony were in the hundreds of thousands. Hinata taught the Jukin to Naruto. Her Jukin was like a blunt knife. Her cousin Neji's was like a razor blade. Naruto's? Like a cinder block. Though he didn't have the control needed to do the Jukin properly, his version pumped so much poisonous chakra into his opponent's coils that they twisted unnaturally, screwing with the nervous system and generally causing havoc. Shino, who had studied chakra strings as per his clan's rite of passage, taught the theory to both Naruto and Hinata. Since his clan had fought a great deal of puppeteers in their past, they had learned how to counter a puppeteer's techniques. Part of learning the counters was learning the techniques themselves. Naruto, in his twisted way, decided to figure out how to apply the chakra strings to his version of the Jukin, though he did not reveal this to his teammates. Naruto taught Hinata how to make automations, robots, similar to the lawn gnomes of the Uzumaki estate, and they worked on using chakra strings in conjunction with them. Later, with Joker and Shino working on seals, Naruto summoned the three-headed jackal, Hachimon. What the dash? Hey, we've been summoned. Good evening, Hachimon. We welcome you with open arms. Well met, pup, said the center head, which had a single symbol on top of his head. Why did you summon us? Asked the right head, having 4 different symbols on his head. Hey look. It's that clown guy. Hi. Blurted the left head, having 3 different symbols on his head. Obviously, that one was off his rocker. Joker chuckled, but kept quiet as he and Shino continued writing seals. I summoned you to make a proposition. A deal, if you will. I know that since Sandman is a bit off, and he has the banner of defense, it is hard for you to defend yourselves. Am I correct? Oh. What's that? Asked the left head as he looked at some random object. The center head raised his eyebrow at the left head. The right head decided to take care of the conversation. That is true. We have become something of a powerhouse with no defense. It is hard amongst the jackals and hyenas, as there are often fights over food and such. Ikemen and I have had to remain in the background, eating only when the others were done. Since we are a male, we also have to let the females have first pick, as is the culture of the pack. It's no fun being the top jackal when you are the bottom of the food chain. I thought so. My proposal is to seal the 3 of you into a weapon, making it stronger and you 3 less vulnerable to attack. I smell pie. Yeonmin, I agree with the arrangement. As do I very well. What are the other terms and what weapon are we being sealed into? The blonde psychopath grinned. Hinata was determined to impress Naruto. She began working on a fighting style based off of the Hacker Rokyuju Yonshao, 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Rather than have it be a simple attack routine like the rest of Hyuga's, she wanted it to be an entire style. Her chakra was changing. She knew that it was becoming corrosive and poisonous, but it remained flexible and fluid, if a little sluggish. A deadly combination. She sought out the Hyuga's own resident medic Nin, Hyuga Shishao, for supplemental training. A branch member, he didn't much like the members of the main house of the Hyuga family, but like all the branch members with the exception of a few, he had a soft spot for the Hyuga heiress, Hinata. Hinata-sama, greeted the 30-year-old medic. What can I do for you? Good afternoon, Shishao-san. I need to step up my training. You are aware of who my teammates are, yes? Of course. The Aburame prodigy and the Uzumaki child. Well, you would know that the Aburame use their own hives of bugs to heal themselves, so Shino-san is safe from most injuries. Naruto-kun has a remarkable ability of recovery, he has no scars. Unfortunately, I do not have such defenses against bad luck. Bad luck. That is what the Hyuga often called the blind spot that plagued their bloodline. Also, Shishao knew that Hinata did not have the skill to learn the kiten, the spinning technique that protected against attacks that came from any direction, including the blind spot. You wish to learn medical jutsu from me? Not just that. I wish to create a new taijutsu style based off of the Jukin style's ultimate attack, the Hakurokyu Yanshao. I figure that incorporating chakra scalpels into the attack, I can create a much more deadly version. Truly, the Hyuga heiress was a genius. She may not be as precise or as quick with the Jukin, but to create a new style combining the ultimate attack of an existing style with a medical technique known to cause severe damage without much effort would be an extraordinary achievement. With Hinata's chakra reserves being greatly above average, this would likely be possible. Very well. But I must inform you, I will not do this as a branch member serving the main house, I will do this as a friend. Good. I wouldn't want it any other way. Oh, and I want our training to be our little secret. Of course, replied Shishao, realizing that Hinata was definitely more confident than when she had left for Wave. He knew that she would be better for it, but it begged the question, why? Wasn't the demon brat's presence detrimental to everyone? It was interesting, to say the least, but Shishao would not look into it further. He felt more honor-bound to Hinata than he did to any other main member. He would wait for signs of distress before he demanded, as one of her guardians, for her to be removed from her team. Naruto was spending some of his free time taunting Sakura and Kiba. He had introduced himself with a boot to Kiba's head. Akamaru was growling at Naruto when the blonde sensed something coming at him. He whirled around and caught a blunted kunai. He saw who threw it. Konoha. You're improving, stated the insane blonde. Learned from someone who was willing to teach me, retorted the child. Who would that be, I wonder? Me, replied Kiba. So rather than mimic the clown, you settled for the Chihuahua pup. Kiba growled in response. Hey, boss, interrupted Konoha, drawing the Inyazuka's attention. That girl with the pink hair. The kid held his hand up and stuck out his pinky. Is she your, you know? Kiba blushed. Naruto shook with barely contained laughter. Sakura growled in rage. You come back here, you little. She said just before chasing after him. Kiba chased after her to prevent her from killing the poor kid. Naruto followed simply to watch the show. Konoha turned to stick his tongue out at Sakura, and turned back only to run into something, knocking himself backwards. The object he ran into grunted. Hey! You little runt! That hurt. The person who was whining picked Konoha up by the back of his shirt. The small boy was terrified, but to his credit, he simply scowled menacingly at the hooded figure holding him against the wishes of gravity. The figure holding him was wearing a black robe and had face paint on, making him look like a kabuki actor. He had a body-sized bundle on his back wrapped in bandages. Behind this figure was a blonde girl, slightly older than he, with her hair tied into 4 small pigtails. She had a giant fan strapped to her back. Stop scowling at me. I'm going to teach you a lesson. You probably shouldn't do that, Kankuro, remarked the girl. This isn't like it was back home in Suna. Shut up, Tamari. Little brats like this should show proper respect to a ninja of the sand. I'm surprised he hasn't pissed in your face yet, then, retorted Kiba, who had finally caught up. Akamaru barked as though he was agreeing with his master. Out of my way, Shidza boy, before you get flattened. Suddenly, Sakura was there and she bashed Kankuro's wrist with a 2x4, forcing the kabuki enthusiast to let go of Konoha. Gah! Both the girl and the young child managed to get behind Kiba before the hooded boy could react. That's it! Roared Kankuro as he pulled the bundle off of his back. But before it even hit the ground, his wrist was hit with a rock, forcing him to drop the bundle. He and Temari looked up into a nearby tree to see Sasuke lounging on one of the branches, nonchalantly juggling some rocks. "You should be careful," he stated, grouping all 3 rocks into one hand. "This is not your home, little ant." "You should be careful," replied a voice from behind Sasuke, totally devoid of emotion. "Little lizards should not become too prideful." Sasuke was stunned. How did the boy get behind him? Suddenly, his presence was gone. He was then standing next to Kankuro. He was shorter than the other 2, had red hair, and no eyebrows. Instead, he had the kanji for love tattooed above his left eye. His eyes also had bags under them and around them that were so dark, they might as well have been black. This boy carried a giant gourd on his back. "Gaara!" exclaimed the other 2. "We should go back to the hotel." "In the tree, what's your name?" "Uchiha Sasuke." "I wasn't talking to you, worm." Puzzled, Sasuke looked around. Suddenly, he noticed a weight on his head. He went to brush whatever it was off when he came in contact with a boot. Suddenly, the weight was gone as Naruto jumped down only a few feet away from Gaara. Sasuke glared at the blonde clown. Before answering Gaara, Naruto turned to Sasuke. "You may want to wash your hair. I may or may not have stepped in dog crap." Just before disappearing from the tree, Sasuke's eyes widened in horror. Naruto laughed at his vanishing act. He was still chuckling when he turned back to Gaara. "Name's Uzumaki Naruto. Let me be the first to welcome you to Konoha for the chunin exams." Naruto extended his hand as if to handshake. Gaara just stared at the outstretched arm, wondering what it would take to sever that arm from the rest of the body. "No? Well, how about you, Mr. Mascara?" Kankuro's eyes narrowed, but he took the proffered hand only to be zapped with a little over 1,000 volts of electricity. The hooded boy fell over, unconscious. "Kankuro!" screamed Temari. Naruto fell backwards, laughing his head off, causing Konohamaru, Sakura, and Kiba to sweat drop. When he was done, Gaara spoke. "I'll remember your name, Uzumaki Naruto. Temari. Take Kankuro." With that, he vanished. Temari glared at Naruto, then picked up the hooded boy and his bandaged parcel and disappeared. The whole of Konoha was in an uproar making last-minute preparations for the chunin exams. Ninja from villages all around the known world gathered together to take the test. Finally, the day arrived. Team 8 saw the hallway with the classroom under a genjutsu. They kept walking, knowing the hallway to be under an illusion. They then arrived at the testing hall. Naruto looked around at all of the other chunin hopefuls. "Ha!" he yelled while grinning. "I'm going to slaughter the lot of you." Some simply dismissed him. Others glared at him. 3 walked towards him. "How's it going, clown, Hinata-san, Shino-san?" asked Ino, one of the 3. "Well, if it isn't the fangirl. Has your one true love arrived yet?" Obviously, Ino didn't detect the sarcasm dripping from Naruto's voice. "No, and I hope that big forehead girl doesn't make him late." "How you doin', muscles?" asked Naruto. "Doing great," replied Chuji. "I hear you guys went on an A-ranked mission." "That's right," explained Shino. "It started as a C, but it was bumped up to A." Shikamaru-san, how are things?" asked Hinata. "As troublesome as ever," replied the lazy ninja. "Our sensei doesn't train us much, so we have to take the initiative. It's a total pain." "Rai-yi-yi-yi-night," retorted Naruto. "Say, how about a quick game of Mumba Peg? Only if I'm the one holding the kunai. You're no fun." Then Team Guy walked into the hall. They quietly sat down in a few seats, which was remarkable for Lee to do. Finally, Team 7 entered the hall. "Get lost?" Naruto asked Sasuke. "Bastard," replied the Uchiha. "Flattery will get you nowhere." Ino glomped Sasuke, triggering an argument with Sakura. "Hey, Naruto," called Kiba. "I'm going to beat you to a pulp." "I've been training." "So have we," replied Hinata. "So loud for such young ninja," said a new voice. An older boy wearing glasses approached them. He had silver hair and a Konoha forehead protector. "Who are you?" demanded Sakura. "My name is Yakushi Kabuto," he replied. "And this is my 7th time taking these exams." "Wow," said Kiba. "You must be really pathetic. Actually, the exams are that difficult." As Kabuto continued his conversation, the 3 members of Team 8 looked at each other. In the eyes of all 3 was the message, there is no way this guy failed that many times. Naruto knew it because of the large chakra reserves that the other boy had. Hinata knew it because of the calculated movements that Kabuto made, revealing his insincerity. Shino could tell by the tonal fluctuations in the other boy's voice. When Kabuto pulled out his ninja info cards and explained how they worked, Naruto sniggered and broke into song. "With my ninja info cards? What the heck are those? My ninja info cards have been chakra encoded. My ninja info cards. Ninja info cards." Mostly everyone in the exam hall was stunned. "Did you just make a song out of what I just said?" asked Kabuto incredulously. "Yeah. Why? Never mind. Any info on anybody you want to know?" Sasuke spoke first. "Rock Lee, Gaara of the Desert, and Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto raised his eyebrow at this, but said nothing. "Let's see here. Rock Lee has excellent taijutsu and decent skill with the weapon as well as above-average stealth. He has no skill in ninjutsu or genjutsu." Kabuto continued by giving Lee's mission record. "Gaara's stats are rather unknown. All I know is that he's never been hurt." He also gave Gaara's mission record and reiterated that the red-haired boy from the sand never got hurt. "And Naruto? He's been on 58 D rank missions and 1 A rank. He is the son of Uzumaki Joker and Uzumaki Harley. He seems rather balanced when it comes to taijutsu and ninjutsu. His skill in genjutsu is unknown. On his last mission, he killed the demon of the mist, Zabuza, and slaughtered a gang of thugs." The various ninja who had heard of Zabuza and were listening in looked at one another in astonishment. "Of course, this is only what the young Uzumaki has unknowingly shown me. Anyone else want information?" "I do," answered Hinata. "I want to see how the card for myself compares to that of Hyuga Neji." Hinata saw that her card showed her to be at less skill and power than Neji. She began to look distraught, but then Naruto whispered something into her ear. She then realized that Kabuto didn't know what she was capable of. She silently thanked Naruto. Kabuto then mentioned how nearly every hidden village had sent genin to be tested for the rank of chunin. Even the new village, Oto, Sound. He assured the Konoha genin that the Odanin probably weren't all that strong. The 3 Odanin then attacked Kabuto. Though the boy dodged, his glasses still cracked and he became violently ill. Then a voice at the front of the room yelled at them for fighting. It was Marino Ibiki. "This part of the test is not about combat." "Hi Uncle Ibiki," called Naruto from the back of the room. Ibiki laughed. "I see my psychotic nephew is participating in the exams." The interrogation specialist then explained the rules for the first test. After all the genin were seated, the test began. Many people had no trouble gathering the needed information to fill out the answers, though many more failed their teams due to carelessness. Naruto had done no information gathering. The first thing he did when he sat down was remove his weights under the desk and stash them under his chair for the time being. Then he wrote a whole bunch of nonsense and drew some pictures on his test. When there was only 20 minutes to go, Naruto was ready to make his move. He pulled out a flashbang from his weapons pouch, pulled the pin and set it down on his boot. He then kicked it into the air while pointing at it and yelling, "What the hell is that?" Quite literally everyone's attention had been focused on the strange cylinder when it exploded into a brilliant, blinding light and a deafening sound. Naruto, who was ready for it, covered his eyes right when it went off. He moved quickly, switching someone's test paper with his own. Within 10 seconds, he was back at his seat, his new test paper bearing his name. He also managed to put his weights back on. 5 seconds later, everyone had finally managed to recover from the distraction. Since neither Ibiki nor any of the chunin examiners could find anything out of order, they decided to let it go. Ibiki had a rough idea of what happened, but that was only because he personally knew Naruto. He wasn't about to dock points for Chapter 9, Advantage. After one of the genin stupidly started demanding an explanation as to what happened to his testing paper, Ibiki finally asked the 10th question. If anyone failed the 10th question, they, and their teammates, would never be allowed to advance to the rank of chunin. Any who wished to opt out was allowed to do so, failing their teammates. Ibiki thought that he had tormented the genin quite enough. All of you who have stayed. You pass. What? Screamed out several of them. All of you who remain have passed the first part of the exam. It's quite simple. The information gathering exercise was to weed out those who were far too obvious in their attempts to spy. Unfortunately, I do believe that my nephew found a loophole in the system. Ibiki paused while Naruto laughed. Regardless, the ones who were left at the end were then given a choice: accept a mission with the possibility of death or back down and not get paid. Chunin, as squad leaders, are expected to make these decisions. All who left before I asked the final question will be allowed to compete again in 6 months, but the rest of you advance. Now, the next proctor for the exams is Dash. Glass shattered, interrupting Ibiki. A woman jumped through the broken window, 4 kunai flew out, a banner was pulled up, and the woman began a speech. I am the sexy Kunoichi Mitarashi Anko, proctor for the second part of the chunin exams. Auntie Anko. Oh, hello Naruto. Anyway, you are all to meet me just outside of training ground 44 in 30 minutes or your team automatically fails. Move it, maggots. Hear that? We're all going to be flies when we grow up. Exclaimed Naruto. You would all make for interesting etymological specimens, muttered Shino, causing Naruto to crack up. Boys, retorted Hinata, stealing the thought out of the minds of every female present. Training ground number 44 aka the Forest of Death. A class secret training ground. Danger level, high. Mortality rate, high. Survival rate, low. Chosen site for part 2 of the chunin exams, yes. Anko's most favorite place in the whole world, very yes. Location, near the Uzumaki estate, formerly known as training ground number 45. Likelihood of any of this information having any significance to this story, 67%. You have to sign these waivers if you are going to continue. This next part will be a survival exam and it will cut the number of teams down by at least half. At least half of those teams will be disqualified simply because at least one of their team members will be dead. Now there are 2 different scrolls. Some teams will be given the Heaven Scrolls, and the others will receive the Earth Scrolls. Your objective is to get to the tower in the center of the Forest of Death with at least one of each scroll, both of which must remain unopened. You have 5 days from the start to the finish. Any questions? One genin dumbly raised his hand. Is killing allowed? With a goodly amount of killer intent, Anko stared him down. Is the sky blue? Naruto-san, Shino said, gaining the clown's attention. What is our plan for this? You 2 set up traps around the tower. Using the various underground routes that my family has made around here in secret, I'm going hunting. Oh, here's a map of those routes. Both of you should memorize it well. Shino and Hinata stared at the paper for several minutes. I have it committed to memory, said the Aburame. I also have the map memorized, stated the Hyuga heiress. Good. Electricity crackled in his hands and the map burst into flame. Use those routes to your advantage. We'll meet up at Tunnel 13 in 3 days. Hi, replied Hinata. Wakata, replied Shino. Naruto collected their Earth Scroll from Anko before the exam began. While Team 7 was busy dealing with Orochimaru, Naruto was rushing through the trees. He found a team from Kumo discussing plans near one of the exits to his extensive tunnel network. He quickly entered the tunnel from a different entrance and silently exited behind one of the genin. He was enshrouded by natural shadows. He used his version of the Jukin to disable the poor SAP's arms before he had a chance to react. As Naruto pulled his hands away from his victim's shoulders, he attached chakra strings to them. What the Kumanin's teammates saw was the poor boy began strangling himself. Hey, doesn't he have the scroll? Yeah, he does. Why is he choking himself? Scroll, huh? Naruto blatantly left his cover, making a sneaky tiptoeing motion to get back to his victim. He reached the boy and pulled a scroll out of the Kumanin's weapons pouch. It was the Heaven Scroll. So they were right, he whispered quite loudly. He did have the scroll. He then snuck away in the same manner. The two Kumanin shared a look before attempting to rush the blonde, only to have their choking teammate suddenly let go and grasp the both of them by the necks. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I have no control over my arms." All he could do was watch as he strangled his teammates to death before his hands returned to his own neck. One team from Kusa, Grass, unwittingly fell into one of the traps that Shino and Hinata had set up. They were carrying both scrolls. Shino and Hinata were ecstatic about the fact that they had passed their team by themselves. They just hoped that Naruto wouldn't get too carried away in his merry-making. Kiba managed to kill the snake that had tried to eat him with his Tsuga, piercing fang, only to be attacked by a second one. Being already pissed, the Inyazuka boy Tsuga'd the second serpent, sending it back to the realm of summons, rather than offing it. He rushed back to his teammates, determined to help them. Especially Sakura-chan. Unfortunately for a team from Ame, Naruto had found them and summoned the jackal Moji Bake, a master illusionist and a proficient shapeshifter. Moji Bake, having an extremely sick sense of humor, caused Naruto to laugh and sing along to her illusion song that she had gotten the rain ninja stuck in. The genjutsu went something like this. You can scream, you can cry, having to fight for your life. See that girl, watch her scream. Stab at the sausage meat. Friday night and morale is low. Looking out, but no place to go. Where they play the right game, going on killing. You run from the bloody gore scene. Anybody could be that guy. His face is gone, slashed with a knife. With a bit of skull bashing, everything is gone. I'm in the mood for a bath. And when I get the blood. You are the sausage meat, young and sweet, only screaming ee. Sausage meat, feel the beat from the bludgeoning. You can scream, you can cry, having to fight for your life. See that boy, watch him scream. Stab at the sausage meat. You're a loser, you die tonight. Leave you burning and then you're ash. Looking out for another, anyone will do. I'm in the mood for a bath. And when I get the blood. You are the sausage meat, young and sweet, only screaming ee. Sausage meat, feel the beat from the bludgeoning. You can scream, you can cry, having to fight for your life. See that wimp, watch him scream. Stab at the sausage meat. And with that, the last corpse fell down, dead. Naruto cracked up. Thank you, Naruto managed to gasp between bouts of laughter. You're welcome, darling clown pup. Do call again. And with a puff of smoke, she was gone. Naruto pilfered another heaven scroll from his latest victims. Of course Anko rushed into the forest of death when she saw the three genin that had their faces melted off. Orochimaru's work, no doubt. She had to kill him for leaving her behind. She had to kill him for ruining her life, for making her a monster in the eyes of the villagers. She wanted revenge so badly. Too bad that Orochimaru knew how to push all of her buttons. But there was some hope. She was being followed. She attempted to use her suicidal jutsu, Sujisuze no Jutsu, Twin Snake's Mutual Death no Jutsu, on him only to have his body be replaced with a mud clone. A mud clone. Oh come now, Anko-chan. My own jutsu against me? You must really hate me. You wound me, right here. Of course he said that in such a mocking tone as he pointed towards his heart. It really got Anko's blood boiling. But then Orochimaru leapt back. Had he moved an instant later, he would have been skewered by the live marlin that was stuck in the tree branch he had been standing on. Genuinely surprised, both snake-based ninja looked towards the thrower, based on the trajectory that the squirming swordfish was stuck in its position. They saw a woman dressed in a jester costume of a black and red and white pattern. Around her waist was a hitayate for Konoha. There were also kunai and weapons pouches on her thighs. On her face was a psychotic grin. In her eyes, battle lust with a hint of intelligence. Orochimaru was confused. Who was this Kunoichi? Why was she dressed much like a clown? Why did she throw a fish at him? In fact, where had she kept the fish? Anko, dearie, is this that Orochi man you were talking about earlier? Yes, stuttered the snake Kunoichi. The woman smirked. She made a cross-shaped seal with her fingers. Cage Bunshin. There were 42 clown women at that time. They then attacked, throwing kunai, shuriken, and live fish at the snake man. He managed to dodge all of the projectiles and dispel most of the shadow clones before he got blindsided. The original clown woman had managed to hit him in the back with a gigantic mallet that she seemed to pull from somewhere behind her back. Orochimaru laughed as he landed. He made several hand seals, planning on using the second curse seal implanting jutsu that he was able to perform that month. As his neck elongated, so did his canines. Unfortunately for the cold-hearted snake, the clown made some hand seals of her own, put her right arm into the air, and pivoted on her heel. Caustic barrier, no jutsu. Needless to say, the snake man got a mouth full of acid. That hurt like hell. Then, Orochimaru noticed that Anko was taking cover. Caustic barrier conversion, caustic bomb, no jutsu. Second face full of acid in as many minutes. He was going to retaliate, when the clown gave him a boot to the head, sending him towards a tree which he dissolved into. He stuck his mutilated face out of the tree to say the following: "Don't stop the exams or else I will kill all of the genin for the next 5 decades. He was gone before a number of senbon embedded themselves into the tree in the place where he was in the shape of a smiley face. "Harley?" asked Anko. Harley was panting. "Yeah. What a workout. A team from Iwa were Naruto's next set of victims. Odd that they called him the Yellow Flash Reborn, as he quickly dispatched them. The female died via an acid pie to the face. One of the males was twisted around into a pretzel shape. The other male was pumped full of Type 2 Smilex. He died laughing about how the Yellow Flash had returned for revenge in the form of a laughing fox. Naruto liked the sound of that. Laughing fox certainly had a ring to it. The pretzel genin happened to have an earth scroll. Naruto laughed once he met up with Shino and Hinata. They had passed the exam 3 times over. They headed for the tower. Once they exited the tunnels as close as they could get to the tower, Naruto noticed something and threw a kunai at it. It was a giant millipede. Naruto started eating its corpse along the way to the tower in order to gain the strength of its venom. Considering that neither Shino nor Hinata had enough of the Uzumaki bloodline to be immune to the venom, they didn't eat any of it. All things considered, Kiba knew that his team should be dead. They faced Orochimaru, the team from Oto, and still had to get another scroll. Thankfully Kabuto had helped them out. And then they survived that team from Ame due to the combined talents of Kabuto and Kiba. That was no easy walk in the park. But they barely made it and passed the exam. This final part of the exam will be done tournament style, stated Anko. And I will not be the one in charge. Thank you my dear serpent, said a familiar voice with a rather sarcastic drawl. The owner of the voice entered the room. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Uzumaki Joker, known as the illustrious Mr. J, in some circles. Some of the genin, especially the ones from Oto, began to sweat. I will be the proctor for this final stretch of the exams. As expected, there are far too many of you, so we will have to eliminate some of you. But before we begin, any of you who do not feel up to fighting may turn their tails and leave. Any takers? The Hokage smacked his head. He just knew that Joker would do that, despite the fact that he had expressly forbade him from making it seem like an honorable exit was a wimp's way out. Oh well. Kabuto raised his hand and asked to leave. He said that his chakra was all gone, which Naruto, Joker, Hinata, Shino, and Kiba were pretty sure was a lie, and said that he wished to give up rather than be killed. What a disappointment, said Joker. Well, we should begin the elimination rounds. Chapter 10, Test Your Might. Now, there are certain rules that must be obeyed, began Joker. There are almost no rules. You win if you incapacitate or kill your opponent, or if your opponent forfeits like a pansy. If I determine that someone is incapacitated, I'll jump in and stop the match, so feel free to let loose. And so, without further ado, the first match will be between, wait, what? When the screen that would normally display who was facing who, there was a large picture displayed instead. Earlier that morning, Naruto had sent 3 shadow clones of himself with a digital camera. One came back with said camera. The picture was of Neji, wearing a biker's jacket and really tight leather pants, complete with bondage straps, holding hands with Sasuke, wearing chaps, moccasins, and a headband with a feather sticking out. The both of them seemed to be caught in the act of entering a certain building. The building had a sign out that read, "The Flaming Dog," and was reputed to be a popular gay bar. Neji, upon seeing this, had a look of total disgust on his face. That is not what I meant by flames of youth, thought Guy. But I can't tell him how to live his life. Didn't I see Naruto send some clones out this morning? Thought both Lee and Tenten. Sasuke practically squealed, but upon realizing where he was, he managed, Ew. This caused both of his fangirls to look at him in a new light. Sakura edged a little bit closer to Kiba while Ino simply edged further away from the Uchiha. Speaking of Kiba, who was rather homophobic, he shuddered in fear of his teammate. I definitely didn't teach him that, thought Kakashi. Kurenai and Shino recognized the picture as one of Naruto's pranks, and it was all they could do to contain their mirth. Shikamaru and Chuji were also having trouble containing their laughter. Hinata giggled at the embarrassment that her cousin was receiving. Naruto didn't bother holding in his laughter once he saw everyone's reactions. The team from Oto was oddly silent, though their sensei was grinning from ear to ear. The 2 teammates of Kabuto were rather stoic, though anyone with a critical eye could see that they shuddered ever so slightly with revulsion. The Sand siblings had their own reactions. Kankuro and Temari laughed and Gaara snorted. But with disgust or mirth no one knew, nor did they dare ask. Baki, their sensei, merely shook his head. The Hokage took one look at the screen and said something that made Joker, Ibiki, and Anko laugh. Kids these days. All right, we've had our fun. Began the Joker. Fix the screen. The screen shut off, then powered on again displaying Akadu Yoroi vs. Aburame Shino. All right. The rest of you should go up on those railings to wait your turns. Shino stood at one side of the arena and Yoroi stood at the other. You're of the Aburame, correct? Yeah. You and your chakra leeching bugs have nothing against me, really. I absorb chakra. Any you send at me will be killed in seconds. I agree. But they won't be the only ones dead. Boys, began Joker. Sorry to interrupt, but your match starts now. Begin. Yoroi charged quickly, but he was blocked by a wall of bugs. True to what he said before, the bugs dropped like flies, pun intended, when they came in contact with him. You're going to lose your entire hive. Stated Yoroi. No, replied Shino. Just a third. The bugs around Yoroi began to glow. What the dash? Hodorobuku no Jutsu. All of the bugs surrounding Yoroi exploded, ripping his body to shreds and killing him. His skull flew through the air and Joker caught it. Hey, Yoroi? Are you able to fight? The clown asked the skull. Using his thumb, he made the skull move its mouth. No. No? Ah, well that makes the winner be Aburame Shino. Joker then crushed the skull with his bare hands. Next. Kinyuta Dosa vs. Tenten, read the scoreboard. Tenten started off by throwing various weapons at Dosa, but the Odenin dodged every single one while making his way closer and closer to the girl. She tried to back up while throwing things at him, but he was faster. Normally, she would have been able to skewer the boy 30 times over, but she unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, didn't grow up in a hidden village run by a madman obsessed with strength. Dosa was faster than Tenten and had little trouble in dodging her projectiles. She managed to barely dodge Dosa's punch, but the sound waves coming off of his arm caused the girl to throw up. She forfeited at that point. Next. Abumi Zuka vs. Temari. Zuka was worried. And that was an understatement. He knew that Temari was a wind mistress from the sand. That rank was only given to their best wind users. Hence why the country was called Wind Country. Also, Zuka was injured pretty badly, both of his arms had been dislocated by the Uchiha. He didn't see any way for him to win. Begin. Said Joker. I forfeit. replied Zaku. Was. Countered the clown. Why? Asked Tamari. Because I'm injured, and when it comes down to it, my wind jutsu will be inferior to yours. Orochimaru, who was disguised as the Oto Genin's instructor, decided Zaku would die rather painfully. How boring. Next. Shikamaru vs. Tsuragi Misumi. If my jutsu gets a hold of you, you are finished, declared Misumi. Ironic. My jutsu works the same way, responded Shikamaru. Enough banter. Begin. Faster than the lazy boy could react, Shikamaru found himself encircled by Misumi. See. Began the ninja wearing sunglasses. My body has been modified so that I can stretch myself out and capture opponents or fit into any space. Give up or I break your neck. Troublesome, commented the lazy boy. Suddenly, Misumi let go and stood in the exact same stance as Shikamaru. What the hell? Seems my jutsu overrides yours. My Kagemon no jutsu will force you to do everything I am. And I can tell that you don't have enough chakra to resist my jutsu. Shadow possession no jutsu. Shikamaru turned around. So did Misumi. Shikamaru walked towards the wall. So did Misumi. Shikamaru mimed banging his head on the wall. So did Misumi, sort of. Misumi actually banged his head against the wall so hard that both wall and skull cracked. Shikamaru released the unconscious Misumi. Winner. The Nara Kid. Next. Uchiha Sasuke vs. Yamanaka Ino. Give up, muttered Sasuke to the blonde. Ino wasn't stupid. She knew that Sasuke was much faster than her, making her clan jutsu rather useless. He was more apt in taijutsu than her. His weapon skills were much better than hers. Her only resort was genjutsu, which she had no skill in just yet. Begin. Uzumaki-san. What is it? The clown was curious as to what the blonde was going to ask for. I would like to forfeit. I stand no chance against Sasuke right now. Joker cocked his head. His immediate impulse would be to hurl insults at her, but she was right. She was outclassed. So, instead of insult her directly, he decided to insult her by means of stating facts. Very well. Next time, don't bother to enter the exams unless you have a decent skill set with a good amount of power. Next. As Ino left the ring for the railing, Kakashi took Sasuke to a containment room to seal up his cursed seal, acquired from Orochimaru's attack. Orochimaru followed just to mess with Kakashi's head. Akimichi Chuji vs. Chuchi Kin. Kin threw a pair of senbon at Chuji, but the larger boy simply dodged. He heard the bells attached to the two senbon jingle. Thinking it was a way for her to make him confused about whether to dodge or not, he prepared himself, only to hear the bells again. There were strings running from the bells to Kin's hand. He realized that it was a genjutsu trap based on the bells, so he decided to do his own thing. Rather than just use his Nakuden Sensha, human meat tank, jutsu, he opted instead for a ranged attack his father taught him. Futon, Daigapyu no Jutsu. Wind release, Big Belch no Jutsu. Chuji belched out a ball of compressed air straight at Kin. She barely managed to dodge only for her to be hit with a palm burst from the large boy, knocking her out. Oh, and the Daigapyu caused a crater in the wall from the impact. Kakashi returned just in time to witness the end of the match. Joker laughed at the loud and boisterous jutsu for a little bit. Then he said, next. Gaara vs. Rock Lee. Author's note, do I really need to go over the fight? After Lee finally lost to Gaara, Naruto was a little disappointed. Lee, someone else who was getting over a prejudice against him, in this case, a prejudice related to his handicap, nearly beat the Jinchuriki for the Ichibe, One Tail, but instead had lost. But the fight had given Naruto some ideas on how to beat Gaara. Most interesting. There seems to be potential in some of you slackers. Next. Kankuro vs. Haruno Sakura. Now we'll get to finish our business from earlier, stated the Kabuki enthusiast. Sakura swallowed nervously. She was worried what her opponent could do. Certainly, from all those times she and Kiba had trained together she was fairly strong, but she lacked a great deal of skill and power because Kiba wasn't all that great of a teacher. His older sister, Hana, was better, but she was usually away on missions anyway. Now she wished that she had trained more instead of pining after Sasuke, especially since the Uchiha brat's claim of wanting to renew his clan seemed to be nothing more than a lie. But she was determined to at least give a show so that Joker wouldn't have as much of an excuse to insult her outright. She pulled a scroll out of her weapons pouch as Kankuro removed his rather large bundle from his back. Begin. As Kankuro quickly pulled the bandaging off of his parcel, Sakura bit her thumb and slid her thumb over the scroll, summoning a pair of Nikotii, or cat's claws, which she quickly put on her hands. Kankuro's bundle was revealed to be a puppet, which he sent after Sakura, whom tried to go around it and go for Kankuro. But the puppet was too fast and it head-butted her, sending her reeling. Just before Kankuro could finish off Sakura, he found a kunai to his throat. Joker smiled. Well, I do think she's rather incapacitated. You win, she loses. Call your doll off. Kankuro grumbled about it being a puppet while ignoring Naruto's catcalls about how the kabuki enthusiast was destined to be a child stalker when he grew up. Still, the cosmetic-covered ninja recalled his puppet and Joker removed the kunai. Next. Hyuga Neji vs. Hyuga Hinata. You are destined to lose, Neji declared. I'm not as weak as you remember, Neji-Nisan, replied Hinata. What is with all the talking? Begin already. I can perceive your failure. You are, not as without confidence as you used to be. Hinata replied by pulling a scroll out. What are you going to do? Even with your confidence, you won't be able to beat me. I am much stronger than you. She unrolled the scroll, bit her thumb, and slid it across the length of the parchment. 4 puppet-like devices came out. Most foreigners there were amazed that Konoha had puppet users as well, but only a handful knew what the puppets actually were. Still, Kankuro gained a healthy respect for the girl, able to conduct 4 puppets at once. Puppets won't save you, my dear cousin. Give up. Neji-Nisan, shut the hell up. At first, Neji was shocked by Hinata's attitude and her use of a curse word, but he quickly got over it and began to charge. Hinata used chakra strings to activate all 4 of the automations which identified Neji as their target and attacked him. Knowing that his Jukin would be ineffective against the puppets, he used a kunai to block various blade weaponry and dodged like mad. Hinata was impressed with his speed, but she augmented the robot's movements with her chakra strings. Neji accidentally got his kunai stuck in the face of one of the puppets, which surprisingly caused the head to explode and it to fall over. Hinata muttered something about bad luck and turned the other 3 off. She then charged at Neji. Everyone who thought she was using puppets was startled by the explosion of one of them. Perhaps they weren't puppets after all? Neji felt like he was in his element now that the puppets were inactive and they had moved on to taijutsu. Hinata wasn't using the clan's style, but a bastardized version of it, and Neji was confident that he would win. He disabled her tenketsu, chakra points, in her left arm to show her how ineffectual her style was when she stabbed his arm with her finger, and it went through to the bone and cracked it. Though I still use the Jukin, Neji-Nisan, I also use chakra scalpels. You may have disabled one of my arms, but I disabled one of yours. While you have concentrated on the clan style, I have branched out into puppetry and medical skills. Like I said, I am stronger than you think I am. In response, Neji took the opportunity to strike her with a Jukin to the stomach, causing Hinata to stumble back. You may be stronger, but the weak are always weak. You can't change your destiny, Hinata-sama. Your fate was decided when you chose to fight me. You suffer because you struggle. You dash. Baka. You're the one who suffers because you were born into the branch house, and you can't change that, can you? Neji was pissed, but before he could resume the attack, one of the automations grabbed onto him with its 4 arms, restricting his movement. Did you think I turned them off for no reason? I did it so that you would think I gave up using them, which will prove to be dash. She would have continued, if it weren't for the fact that she began vomiting blood. The chakra string that she was using to keep the automation active dissipated, allowing Neji to get free. In his rage, he rushed forward and tried to deliver another Jukin to Hinata, this time to her head. Luckily, he was stopped by several Chunin, Guy, Kurenai, Kakashi, and Joker, and was eyeballing Jason, Joker's magnum revolver. Alright already. Stupid Hyuga blood feud. You've already won, so go sit down before I put a smile on your face. Threatened the Joker. Hinata continued to vomit up blood, so the medic team quickly retrieved her. Naruto leapt down to see her before they took her away. Hey, greeted the blonde. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, she managed to gasp out while on her stretcher. No. Shush shush. Not your fault, but I'll beat the stuffing out of him. He who is dumber than a sack of hair will fall. I promise you that. Hinata blushed a little, imagining Naruto fighting for her. Before she was carted away, Naruto kissed her. It was a short kiss, more of a peck really, but to Hinata it lasted an eternity. Once he could no longer see her, Naruto turned and smiled maniacally at Neji. What are you smiling at? How funny you are going to look once I cram your head so far in between your shoulders that you'll have to unbutton your jacket to eat. You're welcome to try, retorted Neji. Naruto. Son. Your promise is going to have to wait. You and Kiba are up next. Inyazuka Kiba vs. Uzumaki Naruto. Akamaru, Kiba said after landing down in the fighting area. I want to see how far I measure up by myself first. Okay. The small dog barked and wagged his tail, then ran over to the side. Begin. I know you're pissed off about Hinata and all, began Kiba. But I want the chunin rank. Naruto smirked. He pulled a scroll out of his jacket, bit his thumb, and touched one of the seals on it, producing a boombox. He threw the electronic device to his father. Curious, Joker set it down and pushed play. Some music began to play, but only Naruto and his father knew what song it was. Hee hee hi hee. Laughed the older clown while Naruto took his leg weights off. Tamari thought, him too? How many of these Konohanin use that method of training? But then she saw that he simply set them down. Huh? Maybe his weights aren't as heavy. People talking in movie shows, sang the blonde boy while pointing at Ino whose eyes narrowed. People smoking in bed. Naruto pointed at Sarutobi Asuma, who blushed but nodded. People using the bloody sand, it was Gaara's turn to be pointed at. Give them a boot to the head. Sang Joker as Naruto's foot met Kiba's head. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Continued the older clown, while his son continued to introduce Kiba's cranium to his footwear. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Boot to the head. Ha ha ha. Ha. Ha ha ha. Kiba looked punch drunk, but he got up and charged at Naruto, who dodged while the music continued. Prudes who can't laugh worth a giggle, Naruto sang while pointing at Neji who pretended to ignore what was happening. Politicians who can't think. The blonde pointed at the Sandaime Hokage who grinned at the Uzumaki's sense of humor. The dogman who won't leave me alone, he sang while looking right at the attacking form of Kiba. The loser who forgets to think. This time he pointed at Kakashi who did one of his cyclopean eye smiles. He assumed that Naruto was kidding around. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Joker continued while Naruto returned Kiba's attacks. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Boot to the head. Ha ha. Boot to the head. Sang almost all of the people in the room, including Gaara. Odd. Kiba lay on the ground, seemingly unconscious, so Naruto put his weights back on. Joker was going to announce his son as the winner, when Kiba sat up and ate a soldier pill, giving him a great deal of energy and numbing the pain from all the cranial trauma he had just experienced. Naruto was about to attack again, when his father gripped his shoulder. Now, you should let him set himself up. He let you do the same at the beginning. Oh, and you're not allowed to take your weights off during the rest of this match. Frowning, Naruto relented, and allowed Kiba to get up. Akamaru, let's see if we can't win together. His dog barked and ran over to him. 2 against 1, eh? Asked Naruto. He then did several hand seals. Kuchi Yasei no Jutsu. Cackling laughter filled the room. Shinji, I welcome you with open arms. Well met, my favorite clown. Finally, the smoke from the summoning died down to reveal Naruto standing next to a jackal in armor. Naruto put a hand on Shinji's shoulder and said, "Mine's bigger." Kiba's eyes widened, and then he fed Akamaru a soldier pill. The little white dog turned red. Shikyaku no Jutsu. Forelegs no Jutsu. Kiba's canines became elongated, his nails lengthened into claws, and he hunched over. His entire presence seemed more wolf-like. Jujin Bunshin. Beast-human clone. Akamaru turned into a replica of Kiba. "You won't be able to beat me now," bluffed Kiba. "Shinji, shall we?" With vigor. The four combatants leapt at each other. Gatsuaga. Double piercing fang. Urui Bunshin no Jutsu. Cage Bunshin no Jutsu. After a few intense minutes, Akamaru was unconscious while Naruto looked winded. Kiba was a wreck while Shinji had a fair amount of dents in his armor. "Hey," gasped Naruto. "What, do you want?" "I," gasp, "wish you, wheeze, luck in the, gasp, finals," the dog user said before passing out. "Winner, Naruto. And despite all those handicaps I put on him, too. Well, that seems to be everyone. The old man Hokage has something to say to you all." Naruto listened rather intently as the rules for the finals, which would take place in a month, were explained. All of them, or none of them, or any number of them could become chunin. Winning their matches, tournament style, would allow them to show off more. Also, the daimyo of the various countries, as well as other bigot nobles, would be arriving to view the matches and assess who would be the strongest ninja. The country that is seen as having the strongest ninja would get the most missions/customers going to it. That was really the whole point of the chunin exams. It really was a miniaturized version of a war where there were only a small number of casualties. A month was being given so that the chunin hopefuls could train and learn about their opponents. Also, the 1-month period was to allow all of the nobles to arrive in time to view the finals. Finally, they drew lots. Match 1. Hyuga Neji vs. Uzumaki Naruto. Match 2. Aburame Shino vs. Temari. Match 3. Gaara vs. Uchiha Sasuke. Match 4. Kinyuta Dosa vs. Nara Shikamaru. Match 5. Kankuro vs. Akimichi Chuji. Later, some idiot villager complained to the Hokage that all 3 examiners were related in some way to Uzumaki Naruto. And who else do you think would be able to control him? Sarutobi asked while sending an insane amount of killer intent that caused the villager to pass out. Seriously, there must be an information leak somewhere that was allowing the villagers to gossip about the workings of the chunin exam. The villagers are all baka. Those who have a hatred towards Konoha's own Jinchuriki will likely do whatever is possible to keep Naruto from doing well. They'll even stop his advancement to chunin if they can help it. That's it for part 2. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.